Hey everyone, this is Taehyung. Before we begin, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments. That night didn't announce itself. It arrived quietly, heavy, like something unavoidable slipping into the room without permission. The lights were still warm. The staff was still moving. Voices still existed. But something had already changed. I felt it before anything happened, before anyone reacted, before his body gave in. There are moments when noise continues but meaning disappears. When everything looks normal, yet your instincts start screaming that it is. That was the moment I was standing in. Jungkook was close to me, closer than usual, but there was a distance I couldn't close no matter how near I stood. I noticed it in the way his shoulders sagged, like they were carrying weight they'd learned to hide. In the way his breathing didn't match the rhythm of the room. We had shared stages loud enough to shake floors and silences deep enough to feel sacred, but this silence felt wrong. This one demanded attention. I wanted to say something, anything. A joke, a comment, a nudge, something familiar enough to pull him back into the moment. But hesitation caught me. Sometimes love makes you fearless. Sometimes it paralyzes you because you're terrified of choosing the wrong second to intervene. I stood there, convincing myself he would straighten up, that he always did. When it happened, it wasn't dramatic. There was no crash, no shout, no chaos at first. Just a quiet collapse, like a light shutting off after burning too long. His body folded before his mind seemed to understand what was happening. Time slowed in a way that felt cruel, like it wanted me to memorize every second. I heard someone say his name. I heard my own breath hitch. I moved before I realized I was moving, my hands reaching out as if instinct could reverse reality. His eyes were open, confused, apologetic even, like he was already trying to explain himself without words. That look broke something in me. I don't remember crying loudly. I remember something cracking in my chest, sharp and immediate. The tears came before I could stop them. They weren't meant for anyone to see, but they fell anyway, because some emotions don't ask for permission. I had always believed strength meant staying composed, staying upright no matter what. That belief shattered right there. That night taught me something I didn't want to learn. Strength isn't standing tall when everything collapses around you. Sometimes it's falling apart when the person you love can't hold themselves up anymore. Around us, the others moved instinctively, like we'd trained for this without knowing it. No panic, just motion. Someone cleared space. Someone spoke softly. Someone else called for help. No names were needed. Years together had turned us into something wordless. In that moment, we weren't performers. We were anchors, mirrors, family. As they helped him, I stood frozen for a second too long. My hands were shaking. My vision blurred. I hated myself for not acting sooner, for trusting that a smile always meant everything was okay. I hated how easy it had been to accept endurance as health. The room smelled wrong. Sweat metal, something sharp and unfamiliar. It felt obscene that the world outside continued moving while ours had stopped completely. I wanted to yell at the lights, at the ceiling, at the invisible pressure that had been crushing him for so long. Instead, I whispered his name over and over like a prayer, hoping it could reach wherever he was drifting. In that fragile space between fear and hope, memories flooded me. Late nights laughing over nothing. Quiet mornings where silence felt safe. Promises we never spoke out loud but lived by anyway, to keep walking together no matter how heavy the road became. Those memories didn't comfort me. They terrified me. They reminded me of everything we could lose. When they moved him away from the center of the room, my legs finally obeyed me. I followed without thinking. Not because I knew what to do, but because the idea of not following felt impossible. The others came too. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The worry on their faces mirrored my own. Each of us carried guilt quietly. Was it the pressure, the schedules, the endless giving without enough time to recover? We had told ourselves we were fine because we were together. That night forced us to face the truth we'd avoided. Together doesn't mean invincible. I sat with my head in my hands, tears dropping onto the floor. Cameras, plans, expectations beyond those walls meant nothing. All that mattered was that someone I loved was hurting in a way I couldn't fix with music or smiles. A hand rested on my back. No words, just warmth. It grounded me. It reminded me that even though I felt shattered, I wasn't alone in the wreckage. Time lost meaning. Minutes blurred into something shapeless. When we finally heard he was stable, relief washed over us like rain after fire. But it didn't erase the damage. It only made it survivable. I wiped my face, embarrassed by how exposed I felt, but no one looked away. There was no judgment, only understanding. That night didn't end when the lights went out. It followed me into sleep, into dreams where I kept reaching for him and coming up short. It followed me into the morning, into every quiet moment that demanded reflection. I realized something I wished I had understood sooner. Loving someone isn't just cheering when they shine. It's noticing when their light begins to flicker. It's being willing to stop everything else to protect that light, even when it means facing your own helplessness. My tears said what I couldn't. They spoke of fear, loyalty, and a bond built not only in success, but in vulnerability. They said that if one of us falls, none of us truly stand alone. And as the night finally loosened its grip, I made a quiet promise to him, to all of us, to myself. We would learn to listen better, to rest when rest was needed, to stop pretending weight was something meant to be carried forever. Because no stage, no applause, no dream is worth losing the people who give it meaning. That was the night I understood that breaking isn't the end. Sometimes it's the moment that teaches you how to hold on tighter, with more care, with more love than ever before. The room was too white. That was the first thought that cut through my head when the doors closed behind us. White walls, white lights, white silence pretending to be calm. It felt like a place designed to erase emotion, to turn fear into numbers on screens and clipped sentences spoken by people trained not to feel too much. But we felt everything. Jungkook lay there, unmoving except for the slow rise and fall of his chest. Tubes and wires surrounded him, machines humming steadily, as if they had claimed ownership of his body. I stood frozen at the foot of the bed, my hands clenched so tightly my nails dug into my skin. I didn't realize I was bleeding until someone grabbed my wrist. "Taehyung, stop," a voice said quietly. I looked up. The eyes staring back at me were steady but exhausted, the kind of exhaustion you don't sleep off. We'd all worn it before. Tonight it felt unbearable. "He's breathing," another voice said softly, like saying it too loudly might shatter something fragile. "I know," I replied, but my voice cracked halfway through. I could see it. Seeing it didn't help. It didn't erase the image burned into my mind of his body folding in on itself, of him apologizing with his eyes as if collapsing were an inconvenience he'd caused. I stepped closer to the bed, ignoring the warning looks from the staff. I didn't touch him. I was afraid that if I did, something would change, or worse, nothing would. "He's been pushing himself too hard," someone muttered behind me, frustration leaking through restraint. "He never stops. Even when he's exhausted, he smiles and says he's fine." "That's because we taught him that," another voice snapped. "All of us did." The air thickened instantly. This wasn't just fear anymore. It was anger, guilt, resentment that had been stacking itself quietly for years, waiting for a moment like this to explode. "Don't," I said, turning slowly. My heart was pounding, "not like this." "Then when?" someone shot back. "When someone ends up worse than this." Silence slammed into us again. I hated that there was truth in it. I hated even more that none of us were innocent. We joked about exhaustion. We laughed off pain. We turned suffering into something admirable. We called it passion. We called it dedication. We never called it what it really was. A doctor entered, breaking the tension. His voice was calm, professional, almost detached. "He's stable for now," he said. "But this didn't come out of nowhere. Extreme fatigue, dehydration, prolonged stress. His body shut down because it had no other option. He paused, then met my eyes. For now, he repeated, he needs rest, real rest, not a few days, not a promise to take it easy. If things continue the way they have been, next time might not be this manageable. Next time. That phrase landed heavier than anything else that night. After he left, no one spoke. The machines filled the silence with their steady rhythm, mocking us with how easily they did their job compared to how badly we'd done ours. I should have said something sooner, I muttered. Everyone heard me. I saw it too, someone admitted. The signs. He stopped sleeping properly months ago. I noticed the weight loss, another added. The mood swings, the way he'd zone out. Confessions spilled out, overlapping, messy, too late to change what had already happened. Each word felt like another stone pressing down on my chest. So what? I said suddenly, my voice rising. We all saw it and nobody did anything. We just let it happen. That's not fair, someone argued. We're not doctors. No, I snapped, but we're family. The word hung there, fragile, dangerous. Family doesn't watch family fall apart in silence. The argument escalated after that. Not cruel, but raw. We talked about schedules that were never negotiable, expectations that followed us into sleep, the fear of disappointing millions if we ever slowed down. I'm tired of pretending I'm okay, someone said, voice shaking. I wake up exhausted every day. Then say it, another replied. Say it out loud. And do what? Came the bitter response. Cancel everything, let people down, destroy what we built. That was the truth we'd been circling without nomming. We weren't just afraid of pain, we were afraid of stopping. What's the point of building something, I asked quietly, if it kills us? No one answered. Hours passed. The sky outside shifted from black to gray. Morning crept in like it didn't know it wasn't welcome. Jungkook stirred slightly. Just a small movement, barely noticeable, but it froze all of us. Did you see that? I whispered. He didn't wake, but it was enough. Enough to pull us back from the edge. Enough to remind us why this mattered. When we were finally asked to step out, I didn't want to leave. It felt like abandoning him again. But the hallway was quieter, emptier, and somehow that made it easier to breathe. That's when the phone started buzzing. One vibration, then another, then too many to ignore. I looked down at the screen and felt my stomach drop. Photos, videos, headlines already forming, words like collapse and hospital mixed with uglier ones. Weak, dramatic, attention-seeking. They don't even know, I said through clenched teeth. They don't know anything. Turn it off, someone urged. Don't read it. I can't, I replied. This is our reality. This is what waits the moment we step outside. Anger surged hot and reckless. They wanted everything from us, our time, our bodies, our emotions. And the moment we broke, they acted like it was our fault. Careful, someone warned. No, I said, the word surprised even me. I'm done being careful. I loved what we did. I loved the music, the connection, the people who truly cared, but I hated this part. I hated that we were expected to bleed quietly and smile while doing it. Nobody argued. Later, when Jungkook finally opened his eyes, the room filled again. Confusion passed over his face, then embarrassment, then guilt. I'm sorry, he whispered. That was it. That broke me completely. Don't, I said immediately, my voice cracking as I moved closer. Don't ever apologize for this. You didn't fail. Your body asked for help. Tears slid down his temples, disappearing into the pillow. I didn't want to worry you, he said. I'm worried because I care, I replied, not because you're a burden. The others spoke too, reassurances, apologies, promises made too late but still sincere. I thought I could handle it, he admitted quietly, if I just pushed a little longer. That's the problem, someone said gently. It's always a little longer. Silence followed, heavy, honest. That day didn't change everything instantly. Nothing ever does, but it changed something permanently. For the first time, we stopped pretending. The silence after recovery is never peaceful. It only pretends to be. Days passed, measured by the slow drip of IV fluids and the soft rhythm of footsteps outside the room. On the surface, Jungkook looked better. Color returned to his face. His breathing evened out. He smiled again. That smile fooled everyone else. It didn't fool me, not anymore. We had learned the cost of believing appearances. One night, long after visiting hours were technically over, the room filled again. Curtains half-drawn. City lights bleeding through like distant stars. We sat scattered, some on chairs, some on the floor, some standing because sitting felt too much like surrender. "They're asking when I can come back," Jungkook said calmly, almost casually. Every head lifted at once. "Who's asking?" someone asked, already knowing the answer. "You know who," he replied, eyes fixed on the window. "Schedules, recording, rehearsals. They say the fans are worried, that it would be reassuring to see me soon." Reassuring. The word felt like an insult. "You're still in a hospital bed," someone said, disbelief sharp in their voice. "And they want reassurance." "They didn't say immediately," Jungkook added quickly, like he was defending them. "Just soon." I stood up before I realized I was moving. "Define soon." He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "That's not happening," I said. The room went completely still. "I appreciate the concern," he said carefully, "but this isn't just your decision." "That's exactly the problem," I snapped. "It shouldn't be anyone else's either." "Taehyung." "No," my voice came out louder than I meant it to, raw, unfiltered. "I watched you collapse. I watched machines breathe for you. I'm not going to sit here and pretend a few days of rest fixes years of damage." Someone tried to step in, voice calm but strained. "Let's not turn this into a fight." "It already is," I replied, "whether we want it to be or not." Jungkook exhaled slowly. "You think I don't know that? You think I want to go back already?" "Then why are you entertaining it?" I demanded. His hands clenched into the blanket. "Because if I don't, someone else will decide for me." That shut me up. There it was, the truth we kept circling without nomming. Control that slipped away the moment we became something bigger than ourselves. "I hate this," he admitted quietly. "I hate feeling useless. I hate lying here while everyone else carries the weight." "You're not useless," someone said immediately. "I feel like it," he replied. "And feelings don't disappear just because they're inconvenient." The tension cracked open after that. Voices rose, not screaming but close. Words spilled that had been swallowed for too long. "I'm tired of being afraid to say no. I'm tired of being told this is normal. I'm tired of watching us fall apart one by one and calling it success." Someone laughed bitterly. "You know what happens if we push back too hard." "Yeah," another replied, "but you know what happens if we don't." My pulse pounded in my ears. "If coming back means risking this again," I said, gesturing to him, to the bed, to everything it represented, "then we shouldn't come back at all. Not like before." Silence swallowed the room. "You don't mean that," someone murmured. "I do," I said without hesitation. "At least not until something changes." Jungkook stared at me, something unreadable flickering across his face. "You'd walk away?" he asked quietly. "I'd slow down," I replied. "I'd fight. I'd take the heat. I'd do whatever it takes to make sure this doesn't happen again." "And if it costs us everything?" he asked. I swallowed hard. Then maybe that everything was already costing too much. The walls felt closer after that, like they were listening. Later that night, when exhaustion dulled the sharp edges of our anger, Jungkook spoke again, softer. "I was scared," he admitted. "Not when I fell, before that. I was scared that if I stopped, I'd disappear, that the world would move on without me." That hurt more than any argument. You don't disappear to us, I said immediately. I know, he replied, but knowing something and feeling it aren't the same. The world doesn't make room for weakness, someone muttered. Then the world is wrong, I said. The days that followed were worse in a different way. Meetings happened behind closed doors. Conversations filled with careful language and legal phrases that drained all the humanity out of what we were fighting for. Rumors leaked, never the truth. Headlines speculated about internal conflict, about egos, about tension. They painted us as divided, dramatic, ungrateful. I read more than I should have. They say you're being difficult, someone told me cautiously one afternoon. I laughed sharp and humorless. Good. Jungkook watched me from the bed. You don't have to be the bad guy. I'm not trying to be, I said. I'm just done being quiet. One night, when the room was dark except for the glow of monitors, he asked me something I didn't expect. Were you angry at me? I took a long breath. A little, but mostly I was angry at myself. I saw it too, and I stayed silent because silence was easier. He nodded slowly. I thought if I said something, I'd be letting everyone down. You weren't, I said. You were asking to stay alive. That realization hit him hard. I could see it in the way his jaw trembled. I don't want to be brave like that anymore, he whispered. I don't want to endure everything. Then don't, I said. Be honest instead. The turning point didn't come with an announcement. It came quietly during another tense meeting when someone finally said the words out loud. We can adjust. Schedules shifted, not enough to make headlines, enough to matter to us. Some people weren't happy. Warnings came wrapped in politeness. This could affect momentum. This could change public perception. This could have long-term consequences. So could another collapse, I replied. When Jungkook was finally discharged, cameras waited outside like vultures pretending to be curious. Smiles were expected, gratitude, reassurance. We gave them none of what they wanted. We walked out together, slow, steady. No speeches, no performances, just presence. Inside the car, after the doors closed and the world muted again, Jungkook leaned his head back and laughed softly. That was terrifying, he said. I smiled for the first time in days. Yeah, but it was honest. And that was the point. The calm never lasts. It only waits. The first rehearsal after Jungkook returned was supposed to be light. That was the word they used. Light. As if weight could be erased by vocabulary. As if memory listened to instructions. As if bodies forgot fear simply because schedules demanded confidence. The room smelled the same as it always had. Wood, sweat, electricity humming beneath the floor, familiar, comforting, dangerous. Jungkook stood beside me, rolling his shoulders slowly, eyes unfocused. I watched every movement like it was a test I was failing in real time. You don't have to prove anything, I said quietly. He didn't look at me. You say that like you're trying to convince yourself. That made him glance over, lips tightening. And you're hovering like I'm going to disappear if you blink. Because last time I did, I replied before I could soften it, you fell. The air shifted, not because everyone heard the words, but because something fragile cracked open between us. That's not fair, he said under his breath. I know, I replied just as quietly. I'm not trying to be fair, I'm trying to keep you breathing. He turned away, jaw clenched. I don't need a guard, and I don't need to watch you break again because of me. I swallowed hard. I'm already broken, I just don't want you joining me. Someone nearby cleared their throat. Can we not do this here? But it was already too late. The music started, loud, aggressive, demanding everything from your body without asking what it could give back. Jungkook moved with it instantly, sharp, precise, perfect. That terrified me more than if he'd stumbled. I missed a count, watching him instead of the mirror. Focus, someone snapped. I muttered, even though it was a lie. Halfway through, I saw it. The slight hitch in his breath, the fraction of a second delay in his step, the way his hand brushed his chest like he was checking if something was still there. I stopped. The music kept going. "What are you doing?" someone called out. I walked straight to him and grabbed his wrist. "We're stopping." He yanked his hand back. "Don't." "You're not okay," I said louder now. "I can see it." "You're imagining things," he snapped. "I'm fine." That word again, fine like a curse. "You said that last time," I replied, "right before you collapsed." The music cut off abruptly. Silence slammed into the room. His face drained of color, not from exhaustion but from anger. "You don't get to use that against me." "I'm not using it," I said. "I'm remembering it." "Then forget," he shot back. "Because if you keep treating me like glass, I'll never stand straight again." Someone muttered, "This is getting out of hand." "No," Jungkook said sharply, eyes locked on mine. "This is getting honest." My chest burned. "Honest?" I said. "Fine. You're pushing too hard because you're scared they'll replace you if you slow down." His breath caught for just a second. "That's not true," he said. "It is," I replied, "and you know it." He laughed, bitter and loud. "You think you're not scared of the same thing. You think acting like the hero makes you immune." That hit deeper than I expected. "I'm scared every day," I admitted, "but I'm more scared of losing you than losing a stage." "Then stop trying to control me," he said quietly. "I'm not controlling you," I replied. "I'm begging you to listen." "To who?" he demanded. "You or your fear?" The room felt too small. Too many ghosts pressed against the walls, old injuries, swallowed pain, nights none of us talked about. Someone stepped between us. "Enough, both of you." Jungkook turned away first, shoulders tight, breathing shallow. I stood there shaking, unsure if I wanted to scream or collapse. That night the arguments continued somewhere else. Closed doors, voices raised just enough to be heard. Words like liability, image, and risk floated through the air like poison. I sat alone in a corner, head in my hands, replaying everything. When did protecting someone start feeling like hurting them? He found me later. The lights were dim, the building almost empty. "You embarrassed me," he said. "I didn't mean to," I replied. "But you did." "I'd rather embarrass you than bury you," I said immediately. His jaw tightened. "You think I don't get a say in my own limits?" "I think your limits have been ignored for so long you don't recognize them anymore." "That's insulting." "So is pretending nothing happened," I replied. He paced once, then stopped. "You don't trust me." I stood. "I trust you with my life. I don't trust the world that keeps asking you to trade yours." He laughed again, quieter this time. "You think you're outside that world." "No," I admitted, "but I'm trying to wash the blood off." That broke something. He sank into a chair, head dropping into his hands. "I don't know who I am if I stop." "You're still you," I said gently. "You're just not bleeding for approval anymore." "What if that's all they want from me?" he whispered. "What if that's all I'm good at?" Anger flared, sharp and protective. "That's a lie they taught you because it was convenient." He looked up, eyes wet. "And what if I believe it?" "Then we unlearn it together," I said, "even if it takes longer than they like." Silence settled between us, heavy but real. That rehearsal didn't end with clarity. It ended with exhaustion, with the understanding that healing wasn't linear and love wasn't gentle all the time. Sometimes it fights. And sometimes the hardest part isn't surviving the collapse. It's surviving what comes after. It always starts quietly. A headline here, a whisper there, a narrative forming without ever asking permission. I noticed it first on my phone late at night when sleep refused to come. An article framed as concern, another disguised as analysis. Words carefully chosen to sound neutral while cutting deep. Internal tension, creative differences, one member allegedly slowing things down. I didn't need to read between the lines. They were talking about me. "Don't look at that," Jungkook said when he caught me scrolling. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. "They've already decided who the problem is," I replied. "Ignoring it won't make it disappear." He sighed and leaned back against the couch. "They always need a villain. It makes the story easier to digest." "And you're okay with it being me?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a moment, but that moment mattered. "I'm not okay with any of this," he said finally, "but if it keeps them from pushing you harder." "That's not how this works," I interrupted. "They won't stop, they'll just change targets." The next day confirmed it. Meetings multiplied. Faces grew tighter. Smiles became professional weapons. Every suggestion I made was met with caution, every concern labeled emotional, reactive, unproductive. "We appreciate your passion," someone said, hands folded neatly, "but we need to think long-term." "Long-term for who?" I asked. No one answered. Later, someone pulled me aside. Voice low and sympathetic. "You need to be careful. People are starting to think you're influencing him too much." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. "He's not a child," I said. "He doesn't need permission to feel pain." "That's not what they mean," the person replied. "They think you're clouding his judgment." I walked away before I said something that couldn't be undone. That night, Jungkook found me staring out a window again. Same habit, different weight. "They talked to me," he said quietly. I didn't turn around. "Let me guess, they asked if I was putting ideas in your head." "They asked if I was being pressured," he admitted. My chest tightened. "And what did you say?" "That I've never felt more aware of my own limits," he replied. "And that if awareness is pressure, then yes, I'm under it." I finally looked at him. "That's going to cost you." "I know," he said, "but lying costs more." The backlash didn't come all at once. It came in layers, subtle changes in tone, delayed responses, suggestions framed as concern but delivered like warnings. Fans noticed, they always do. Some defended me fiercely, others questioned my motives. Was I jealous? Was I overstepping? Was I afraid of being left behind? None of them saw the nights I sat awake, counting his breaths when his chest rose too shallow. None of them saw the way his hands shook when he thought no one was watching. They only saw the story they were fed. "Maybe I should say something," Jungkook said one evening. "Clear it up." "No," I replied immediately. "They'll twist it." "Then what?" he asked. "Just let them tear you apart." I shrugged. "I can take it." He stared at me. That's exactly the mindset that almost killed me. That stopped me cold. "I don't want to be saved by your silence," he continued. "And I don't want you bleeding quietly just so I look okay." I sat down heavily. "This isn't about looking okay." "It is to them," he said, "and that's the problem." The turning point came during another meeting, this one longer, colder. Power sat at the head of the table, polite and immovable. "We need reassurance," someone said, publicly. "Reassurance of what?" I asked. "That everything is stable," they replied. "That the team is united." "And if we're not?" I pressed. The room shifted uncomfortably. "Then we need to present it better," someone said. Jungkook spoke up then, voice steady but tight. "I collapsed because I ignored my body, not because of conflict, and anyone suggesting otherwise is lying." A pause. "And if people ask why changes are happening now," another voice asked. "Because I almost didn't wake up," he replied. "That should be enough." Silence followed, heavy, unforgiving. Afterward, someone cornered me in the hallway. "You've made things complicated." I met their gaze. "Things were complicated before I opened my mouth. You just didn't want to hear it." That night, I finally broke. Alone in the practice room, lights dim, mirrors reflecting someone I barely recognized, I sank to the floor and let the weight crash down. Anger, fear, guilt, all of it. What if I was wrong? What if protecting him destroyed everything we built? The door creaked open. Jungkook sat beside me without a word, shoulder to shoulder, same floor that had seen us bleed, sweat, and dream. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. Not of them, of failing you. He leaned his head against mine. You didn't fail me when I fell. You were the reason I got back up. Tears burned behind my eyes. I don't want to be the reason you lose your place. You're the reason I remembered I'm human, he said. That matters more. We stayed like that for a long time, letting the world rage outside without us. For the first time, I understood something clearly. This wasn't just about recovery. It was about redefining survival. And survival, we realized, doesn't ask for permission. There are moments when the world doesn't explode. It simply exhales. The decision didn't come with celebration or relief. It arrived like a weight finally set down after being carried too long. Quiet, heavy, permanent. They called it a temporary adjustment. We called it survival. Schedules were stripped back, appearances postponed, expectations rewritten with language so careful it felt fragile. Nothing about it was dramatic enough for the public. Nothing about it satisfied the hunger for spectacle. And that somehow made people angrier. The announcement went out early in the morning. I read it alone, sitting at the edge of the bed, phone glowing like a confession. Words polished, neutral, safe. Health reasons, recovery, support. No mention of fear. No mention of how close we came to losing him. By noon, the reactions flooded in. Some fans understood immediately. Messages filled with gratitude, relief, prayers disguised as emojis and shaky words typed too fast. Others didn't. Accusations rose like smoke. Weak. Overreacting. Wasting momentum. Letting emotions interfere with professionalism. And then there were the ones aimed directly at me. Influence. Manipulation. Selfishness. I stopped reading after that. You don't have to see this, Jungkook said gently when he noticed my expression. I know, I replied, but they're already seeing me. The first press interaction after the announcement was tense, not hostile, worse, controlled, smiles stretched too thin, questions wrapped in concern but sharpened with intent. Was this decision unanimous? Someone asked. Yes, Jungkook replied without hesitation. Some fans are worried this could affect the group's future, another voice said. So were we, I answered. That's why we chose life over speed. A murmur rippled through the room. Later, someone told me I shouldn't have said that, too direct, too emotional. I didn't apologize. The real fallout came later, when the lights were off and the adrenaline faded. When exhaustion stripped away the armor we'd been wearing for weeks. That's when I felt it. The guilt. It crept in quietly, whispering questions I couldn't answer. What if they're right? What if I pushed too hard? What if this wasn't protection, but projection? I sat alone again, back against the wall, knees pulled close, head bowed. The same practice room, different ghosts. My chest tightened until breathing felt like work. I didn't hear him enter. You're shaking, Jungkook said softly. I laughed weakly. Guess I'm catching up. He knelt in front of me without hesitation. No distance, no pride. Talk to me. I don't know who I am right now, I admitted. I don't know if I did the right thing. Everyone keeps saying I'm strong, but I don't feel strong. I feel like I broke something that can't be fixed. He reached for my hands, warm, steady. You didn't break us, he said. You interrupted a pattern that was killing me. My throat closed. What if they never forgive me? Who? He asked. I swallowed. The world. He smiled sadly. The world has never been gentle with us. Why start living for its approval now? I shook my head. I don't want to be the reason you're seen as fragile. I am fragile, he replied calmly. So are you. So is everyone pretending they're not. That honesty hit harder than anger ever could. I cried, he added quietly, when you weren't around. I looked up sharply. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were busy being strong for me, he said, and I didn't want to steal that. Tears finally spilled, hot, uncontrolled, long overdue. I was so scared, I whispered. When you fell, I thought that was it. I thought I'd lost you. And every day since then I've been fighting the same fear, just wearing a calmer face. He pulled me into a hug, firm and grounding. You didn't lose me, he said. You chose me. That broke whatever was left holding me together. I cried into his shoulder, not caring who might see, not caring how long it lasted. All the restraint I'd carried cracked open at once, the protector collapsing into someone who needed protecting too. I can't do this alone, I said through sobs. You're not, he replied immediately, not anymore. The days after that were quieter, not peaceful, just quieter. The noise shifted from outside pressure to internal recalibration. We relearned simple things: rest without guilt, silence without panic, conversations without performance. Some opportunities faded, others reshaped themselves. Not everyone stayed patient, some doors closed. New ones didn't rush to open. But something else changed. We started listening to our bodies instead of fighting them. We stopped apologizing for limits. We stopped confusing sacrifice with love. One evening, as we sat watching the city lights flicker on, Jungkook spoke again. If I collapse again, he said calmly, it won't be because I ignored myself. I nodded, and if they come for you, then they come for both of us, he replied. That scared me. But it also felt right. For the first time since everything happened, the air felt different, thinner, sharper, honest. The future was uncertain. Careers are fragile things, public favor even more so. But one truth stood clear.